What's the most promising development project you've seen since taking office? I mean, Kurt, you know, in the campaign, he was unequivocal. He said it was going to be the super block. That was going to be his thing. If I don't do it, don't reelect me. You kind of remember that, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what's the most promising, or what is the thing that you know is either most promising or that you see as this is I really want to do this?
I'll give you three, at least two. I'm excited about what's happening with City Hall Park. I mean, this is a little off topic here.
No, this is fine. I was going to ask you about that.
I don't know if you've seen the new exhibit yet.
I have.
I got the opportunity just to engage in the end of that process as that plan was being refined, and I think it's an exciting plan that really I think if that got built, we would have the way the city used and enjoyed City Hall Park would change quite dramatically, and I'd like to see that happen. I'm excited that that's out there. I spoke a lot about the, and at a certain point, I want to make a point. I keep raising it because I spoke a lot about the part of the waterfront between Echo and the ferry dock, which is the land owned by the Pecors. To me, that is a that piece of property is at the heart of the waterfront. It is the most accessible part of our waterfront. It has the greatest potential for expansion of the. To me, I guess the way I often said during the campaign is I think we have unfinished business there, and that we have not fully reclaimed the waterfront from its industrial past. And mostly I'm referring to that site when you think about it. I think that's the most significant remaining parcel down there. I have had some preliminary meetings with the Pecors, and I'm excied that they're open to talking about what the potential is with their site, and whether there could be some combination of expansion of what I talked about during the campaign, expansion of the public uses, the expansion of the public access, the waterfront, coupled with some private development, since it is their land, that enhances the waterfront.
There's always been a tension about viewing the waterfront both on one hand as a obviously valuable local resource with considerable economic potential, but also as the city's largest natural area, as almost like a commons.
Yep.
So, given that, do you see any limits to the type of growth that should happen there going forward?
Do I see limits? I mean, absolutely. We're not going to start putting up buildings on Waterfront Park or anything that happens on the Pecor property. I think needs to maintain public access on the water itself. With an extension of the boardwalk, an extension of the public space, there needs to be meaningful public space on that.
Well, that suggests that if there was going to be a private development, let us say a hotel or something like that, which is, I believe, something that came up during the charrettes, then you're talking about a setback, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the idea. So that those are the kinds of things. So the public amenities, but at the same time balancing that off with.
I would hope more than just a setback. I'd hope that there's, we need to see how the plans develop. But I must say, I know that has been the historic tension, and there is a real tension there. I think it really is important that access be preserved. One of the reasons I started to say earlier that I kept pushing this during the campaign, I never had a single comment come up. No one came up to me during the course of the campaign and said, "I'm really concerned about the way you're talking about the waterfront." I'm really, actually, I think one woman did want clarification. Would there be public access along the water? And once I said yes, she said fine. So it may be that tension remains, or maybe that something has a little bit shifted and there is a greater openness right now. It's been 10 years since we've had much evolution of the waterfront, and I sense a greater tension around people wanting to see more there and wanting more opportunities to enjoy the waterfront and be down there. And so that's where I'd like to see it go.
Mm-hmm. And just before we leave this topic, in terms of the general direction of development going forward, do you have any concerns about gentrification, or whether, just generally the city remains an affordable place, given you know, that it is a place that is ripe, you know, for more development. And you know, how does that factor into your thinking?
Well, that's it. It's a good question. I mean, I do think we have some built-in protections in our ordinance against gentrification, and that really there's a requirement that any new housing development, there's an inclusionary zoning ordinance that requires a substantial amount of affordable housing, and that's a good protection.
Yeah.
You know, I think the status quo shows us how, you know, gentrification. I think when people think gentrification, they think of an area of town that's inexpensive to live in, and developers come in and they build luxury condos, and all of a sudden it becomes expensive and people get forced out. I think what we more experience in Burlington is the other sort of side of the other way you get to gentrification, which is the kind of the Chestnut Hill in Boston way of getting to gentrification. If you have a place that's desirable to live, where people want to live, and you don't allow for any growth or very limited growth, what happens is the existing housing stock becomes more and more expensive, and it forces people out that way. And I think that's a far greater risk for Burlington right now than the first.